Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on this day tonight. I'm your host. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Coming up on the program tonight, I'll be speaking to former Republican Vice President Dr. Nevers Mumba. Well, this is because he's come under fire for suggesting that in a matter of weeks or months, something bad will happen to the former Republican President Dr. Edgar Lungu. According to the preacher man, he is of the considered view that the path the former Republican president is taking leads to one place, and this place is jail. But also I find out from him the allegations that have been leveled against him to the effect that he's keeping some rebels at his farm in Chongwe. Are these allegations true? Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Dr. Nevers Mumba, thank you so much for making time to join us on this day tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Dr. Mumba, you've come under fire for suggesting that very soon you'll be vindicated, and this is because you said that something bad will happen to President Lungu in just a matter of a few months or weeks, actually. What exactly do you know that the Zambian people don't know what will happen to the former Republican president, Mr. Lungu?
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, let me start by saying the obvious. The obvious is that President ECL and myself have no beef between us. If there is any beef, I'm not aware of it. And basically, there's absolutely no need for me to have any beef between the two of us. So that's a point number one. And President Lungu knows that, and I know that. The people around both of us may not have that information, but I've decided to give it for free. Secondly, I am now aware that at this point, I'm not dealing with President ECL. I am dealing with other individuals connected to ECL. Because by the response, the depth of the response to my statement and the ugliness of the response and the abusive way in which the responses have been coming to the advice that we gave to the former president from a godly point of view is a confirmation that we were right in what we said. If we were wrong, the reaction would have been normal and at ease, and just a situation where they'll just let it go. But I think the intensity of the reaction, the hatred, the bitterness, the ugliness in the language that they're using, and the extent to which these people have gone shows that what we said is correct. Now, let me just line it up properly because the media has taken it in another direction. The first statement that I made, and I would like to repeat that, and I'm not afraid to talk about it, is firstly, we made a statement when President Lungu called his own brother, his successor, Chunsu, Uwa Chunsu, and then that HH is a lacuna. And from our moral point of view, in a Christian nation, my advice was the former president should use language that is not abusive, a language which is consistent with our Christian values. And we felt that that language he was using had the capacity to create instability in the matters of politics in our country. That's point number one. So we were advising. And the good news about advising is that he doesn't have to accept our advice. He can either take it or reject it. It doesn't offend us. People advise me all the time. I take some advice, some I don't. And there's no one who is above advice. Advice is free, it costs nothing, and it doesn't have to be accepted. So that was our advice on language to be used by the president. Secondly, on the issue of him going back into politics, which has now culminated in the discussion of eligibility to stand and all that, that is not really our concern at the moment. Our concern is the fact that we gave further advice, and simply said, there's a history in this country. And this is the role of elders, senior members of society like myself. And I think at 64, I've seen all the presidents from Kenneth Kaunda to HH today. So I qualify to use history and common sense to interpret the present. And all that we were saying is that if you choose the path of going the way that Dr. Kaunda did, which is going back into politics after you've left office, like President Chiluba did, like President Rupia Banda did, it seems like they use a common path and they seem to arrive at the same destination. So we didn't see a reason why, according to history and common sense, that Mr. Lungu take a similar path and he ends up in a different direction. For instance, if the road that Dr. Kaunda took him to Kabwe, it's a Kabwe road, and President Chiluba took the same road and he took him to Kabwe, and President Rupia Banda got on the same road, he took him to Kabwe, what are the chances that ECL taking the same road will take him to Chipata? The chances are very remote. So it's not even a prophecy like they're saying Dr. Mumba's prophesied that something bad is going to happen to President Lungu. No, why should I prophesy? My job as a minister of the gospel is to speak life. And that's all I do. And when we advise, it's because these things have happened before. And we are asking him, have you really thought hard about it? And so in that regard, we are not saying that something is going to happen to him tomorrow, which is inconsistent with what has been happening with other former presidents. We mean that whatever happened to the former presidents, how they were alienated from everything, some of them jailed, some of them immunity removed. Those are the things we are talking about. And there's no need for somebody to become so simple that now they're looking for something else to happen to President Lungu. What is there to happen to President Lungu, except the discomforts that happened to other former presidents? And all we are saying is that if you are ready to go through those comforts, please proceed. But those who are saying, don't say anything, let him just keep walking on this road to Kabwe, and he will not get to Kabwe. I think that's unfortunate. And finally, the last statement that has brought about all this talk is when we advise the former president to really watch his back. We say, President Lungu, watch your back. We are aware that the people that are surrounding you, these are the same people that surrounded President Chiluba. And we all know the end of that. They are the same people who surrounded President Rupia Banda. We know the end of the former president. Now they're surrounding him. Again, it's common sense. It's natural wisdom. It doesn't even have to be a prophetic word, that these are the same people that are going to hold on to President Lungu, regardless of how uncomfortable it is for him, regardless of the emotional stress it's going to cost him, regardless of the economic pressure it's going to place upon him, regardless of just the difficulties his family is going to go through. They don't care about any of that, because their political survival depends on President Lungu standing for president again, so that they can be given the old privileged positions and they feel that he's the only one that can save them from going to jail, some of them, whose cases are pending in courts of law. So it is not about ECL, it's about them. And from all the three that I've given, you can see that none of those three is necessarily a fight between me and President ECL. It's a question of, Bamdala, these are things we have seen before. Are you sure you want to go that path? At the end of the day, the decision belongs to him. He is going to have to make a decision as to which path he's going to follow. And if he follows the path of former presidents, he must be ready for the consequences of that path. But at least this time around, in conclusion, on this issue, I watched President Chiluba go through so much pain. I spent hours praying with him towards the end of his life. I know the pain he went through. And I wish I was there and strong enough and bold enough to tell him, Mr. President, this third term thing you want, don't go on this path. You know, but I didn't have that authority to tell him. But today, I do have an opportunity and authority in this nation as a senior minister of the gospel, but also as a senior political leader in this country to advise President Lungu so that if he decides to go on that path, at least I'll feel comfortable that I played my little role in advising and warning him against a path that has never given us any success in the past.
Do you think President Edgar Lungu is politically being persecuted?
Absolutely not. I do not think so. I think that let's be fair. Let's be very fair. This is 3 years into President HH's presidency. And Mr. Lungu is not in court. Mr. Lungu is not in jail. Mr. Lungu's immunity has not been removed. Go back to Kenneth Kaunda. By this time, you know, President Kaunda had suffered a lot in his personal capacity just because he decided to come back into politics. All the stuff came up that he stole money for $1 billion and he stole books and all these things and ended up in Mukobeko. And we know the story. The same thing with President Chiluba. By this time in the 3rd year, President Chiluba was already frequenting court, his immunity removed. He died a sad man. Then we got to President Rupia Banda. By this time, his immunity had been removed. He was frequenting court. Let's be fair. President ECL is at home. He is got his immunity. He is not in prison. He's not in court. And I think to some extent, even if it's hatred in politics, let's understand the fact that he is the one who has been better treated of all the former presidents. So that's a fact. That's not an assumption. You may say, but his family is in court. No one is immune to the law. No one has an immunity. Only he does. His family doesn't. His wife doesn't. His children don't. His family members don't. So you cannot say they are different from us. We went to court after we left MMD left power. We just went there to answer questions. And once you answer the questions, you'll be released to go. Now, I also want to use this opportunity to say to the Zambian people, it doesn't matter how much you love Nevers Mumba. If Nevers Mumba needs to answer a question from the state, be Zambian enough, be Christian enough to give chance to justice, to question, you know, the person that you love. And I think that if people want to question President Lungu, we should not say he's being persecuted. There are questions that are around his life, and somebody has to ask those questions. And if you tell the state not to ask, you are being unfair. But again, it should never be done as political punishment. It should not be done in political hatred. It should be done because justice must prevail in all of us and for all of us.
Dr. Mumba, don't you think the only hindrance at the moment is the fact that the UPND don't have enough numbers to remove the immunity of President Edgar Lungu?
Those are assumptions. And again, that is, when a government wants to remove immunity, sir, they can remove immunity today. That don't be misled or misinformed about that. It was tough to do it for Chiluba. It was still tough to do it for Arabi, but they made it happen. So yes, the law has changed a little bit, but that doesn't mean you cannot remove immunity. There is a provision within which it can be removed, except that you can only remove it for a specific case and not an overall or you know, just a wholesale removal of the immunity. But you can remove it for specific cases that are brought against the president. And let me assure you, if this government, or any government for that matter, wishes to remove anyone's immunity, they will use the instruments that they have at their disposal to remove that immunity. It is a choice that this immunity has not been removed. It is a choice of waiting to make sure that unless they find something that is really devastatingly big, that they are going to have to do that. And I think for me, President Lungu cannot live under that assumption. He should just accept the fact that it has not been removed and maybe let him accept it. It's in good faith that it has not been removed, and he should not push for it to be removed.
Well, you've come under fire because also other people are suggesting that you are keeping rebels at your farm. Are you able to clarify whether these allegations are true or not?
You know, I have seen these allegations, and I was asking the Lord whether I should respond or I should not respond. First of all, let me say this, that I think my opponents, those who have fought me from the time they knew me, get very frustrated that over the years they have created many stories around me and in the hope that something can stick. And once they find out it's not true, they get very angry. And I do not know why they would even think in their remotest minds, if I were to accuse Nevers Mumba of anything, why don't you accuse him of something he's capable of doing? Not that he has kept ex-soldiers at a farm he doesn't have. Why don't, if you want to lie around something that is believable. Nevers Mumba, my background does not allow me to think the way they think. To do some of the things they think Nevers does or can do, I can never do them because of my virtues, my values, and my faith in God. I know they can, that's why they accuse me of it, but I can't do it now and I won't do it in the future because that my nature is changed. I'm a Christian. There are things that I believe in that that will make me never do some of the things I think. For instance, this thing that I've been reading about of a farm in Chongwe. First of all, I have no farm in Chongwe, number one. The only farm I have, which is unfinished, is in Chinsali, in my own place. And there's nothing on it now because we're still working on the process of that farm. So how does somebody wake up in the morning except to believe that there are demon forces in this country that create lies with specs to the lies? This I've never seen. So I have no farm there. I am not aware of any soldiers kept there. In any case, why would I do a thing like that? In whose interest? For what? So that's number one. Number two, they say a lady was raped there by the soldiers from Nevers' farm. Please get that out of your mind. That lady, I saw it on, they have gone so far to get a lady who had a successful brain surgery, and she was being walked from the surgery, and they said, this is the woman that was raped. Now that desperation, I also want to know what is going on with my friends. Just to say that the people surrounding President Lungu are dangerous mercenaries that are going to end him in trouble creates that anxiety and hatred and bitterness and creation of non-existent stories. Unbelievable. I have never seen anything like this. This is why I know we touched a nerve somewhere. So please get it to the colleagues who say that I have a farm. I have no farm. They can go to the Ministry of Lands, they can go to the District Council in Chongwe and ask, where is Dr. Mumba's farm? There is no Mumba's farm. So I am disappointed. And let me add this in conclusion on this issue. You know, when the government was bringing the cyber law and to be able to arrest and imprison those that misbehave on social media, I was hesitant to support it because I was afraid it was going to affect the media and the freedom of expression and all that. But after this experience, now I know we have sick minds. We are people who are deranged. They are sick. To create a story like that, you have to be sick. Sick because you're possessed with evil spirits. Because the devil is the father of all liars. So this is definitely coming from the line of the spirit of demons and lying. So I think that that law should even be strengthened to make sure they hold such sick people accountable. We reported when we first saw it, we have reported it to the police. We have reported that every name that is mentioned there, every face that has appeared must be arrested. And we're happy to hear that the police are pursuing these individuals who claim that I'm keeping ex-soldiers that I am not aware of.
Perhaps maybe I should ask it in this manner. Do you happen to have a farm in Chongwe?
But I've just told you I don't have any land in Chongwe. I don't. So when I say I don't have a farm, I mean land. So how can I explain? If I had the land, I would have a title deed to that land. Or I would have papers from a traditional chief for that land. I don't have that. The only land that is there is the one that is Kantapa from the office of the vice president. It has not yet been given to me. So it's not usable, and it has not yet been given, but it has been offered that we could go and look at it. But there's nothing there for me. And so if they said he has a farm, I don't have a farm. And they're being kept on my farm or on my land. I don't have that property there.
Many have suggested, Dr. Mumba, that it is going to be politically suicidal for the UPND to go in an election with the current state of national affairs. I would like to get it from you, Dr. Mumba. Do you see the possibility of the UPND winning the 2026 elections, owing to the fact that the majority of our people are complaining of the many promises that the UPND haven't accomplished?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that observation. Let me start, Andrew, by saying that all of us have an opinion on what's going to happen in 2026. All of us hold an opinion, and we rightly should hold those opinions in a democracy. I have been in politics a long time, like you've rightly put it, 27 years. I've been in public life for 46 years. These things, I have seen them over and over again. So let me start by saying, are things good in the country? Absolutely not. The standard of living or the quality of life for many Zambians is heavily affected by many factors. But you cannot convince me that we had a better life in the last regime. Anybody who tries to have that kind of amnesia cannot be my colleague. It was so bad in the last regime that millions of Zambians decided to distance themselves from PF and from Mr. Edgar Lungu. That's how bad it was. So in order to improve a bad situation that existed at that point, that made many Zambians turn against that government, and a new government comes, the first number of years, 5 years, they will have to be working day and night to try to reverse that destroyed kind of situation that caused the Zambians to riot against the PF. And I think that our colleagues, if they don't come back in 2026, it's not because they are not trying to correct what was wrong. It was because maybe they didn't have enough time to correct what was wrong, because 5 years may not have been enough to correct the mess that had been created. But assumption that they will not make it in 2026 is basically that, just an assumption. There was a time in 2016 when we were all sure, and the country was sure, that PF would not come back. It was a one-term administration. Things were bad. Things were really bad. And some of us even announced that this thing can't work for PF. Well, the election came, and they claimed they won that election. So these are issues that you can't say from this side, because one day in politics, Andrew, is huge. Today we are talking about the load shedding, being fully responsible for the energy crisis that we have in this country. Also connecting it to the quality of life of the Zambian people. So it's a domino effect. There's a drought, the hydropower, is knocked to its lowest levels. Energy is reduced. It's now being managed and shared amongst people in few hours. And that affects the businesses, the small businesses, the quality of life. Everything is affected by just one domino effect. So I just want you to know that there are certain things like load shedding. Today, we are making a political issue as opposition on the fact that they should have not had this load shedding. And the government must go because of load shedding and energy crisis. But this is a passing variant. It could be corrected within the next 6 months or 7 months. Those are things that can change in a moment. And so politics, 2 years is a long time. 1 day is a long time. So you can't say today, election coming in 2 years, that these guys will not make it. Because all they need to do is to fix what is broken today. And the Zambian people understand that all they needed probably was time to deal with this issue. So I would say that, yes, we are going through a very difficult time, not just a few people, including myself, including my family. If it's not me directly to that extent, my nephews, my relatives, my cousins, in the village, everywhere, they are in trouble because of the limited resources in their hands. And so that's the status that we have. It remains for the UPND to pull up their socks and ensure that they hear the cries of the Zambian people and try to make those amends which are within their power to make. Some of them, they can't do anything about it, like they can't bring rain tomorrow. So they have to look somewhere else to make sure they mitigate that. So these are issues that we can't use to say, in 2 years' time, this one will win, this one will lose. It's too early to make that assumption.
Well, Dr. Mumba, President Lungu says that numbers don't lie. And he recalls at the time that he was handing over power in 2021, just about 3 years ago, he says that, look, he left a 25 kg bag of meal priced between 90 kwacha to 120 kwacha. And today the same bag is costing around 340 to 460 kwacha. But also he argues that at the time that he left office, fuel was only, selling about 17 kwacha. Now the price of fuel has doubled. But also he goes on to argue that the bag of fertilizer at the time that he was handing over power was at 600 kwacha, and today it is around 1,200 kwacha. Don't you think, these issues that the former Republican president raises are critical enough, especially as we go into the next election?
Andrew, listen, there's no need for me to defend UPND on anything. I'm not UPND, but I am not going to join empty politics. That is so cheap. It is so cheap. And that's why when people say Nevers is not being the opposition, it should be. I'm no longer interested in senseless politics that don't have common sense. And I am now 64. I'm not going to do, those are politics for people who have no depth in themselves, who are operating on the basis of hatred or bitterness, or they're angry. Look, that is something I've heard over and over. Some say, well, in Kaunda days, the 25 kg bag of meal was 5 kwacha. In MMD days, the 25 kg bag of meal was 35 kwacha. In PF, the 25 kg bag of meal was 100 kwacha. Look at what has happened, how HH has failed. It's at 300 or 400 kwacha. What kind of economist is that person? The 1 kwacha of Kaunda days, is it the same kwacha of the MMD days? Is it the same kwacha of the PF days? Is it the same kwacha of today? Even the dollar of the Kaunda days is not the same as the dollar of the Chiluba days. It's not the same as the dollar of the PF. This is senseless without quality political arguments. Even the next government, the meal will be more expensive in figure. You cannot compare the prices figure for figure, number for number, because they're inflationary issues. Money is not static. Money loses value. Money sometimes gains value, but the process of the graph is that it goes up all the time as the money loses value. The suit I'm wearing today, if I bought it during the PF days or the Chiluba days, it would have been cheaper in price than it is today, than it was in PF. So if the argument is that let's get Mr. Lungu back because the meal was 100 kwacha, then I insist that I should be the president, because in MMD it was 35 kwacha. So why should the Zambians go to the Mr. Lungu whose millimil was 100 kwacha when my millimil under MMD was 35 kwacha. Using that reason, I should be the one to be considered for president, not him. And maybe even better, not me, but a unique president today on the unique party should be considered to come and take over because their millimil was 5 kwacha. That kind of reasoning, sir, is a desperate way of trying to say I did a better job. The Zambians told Mr. Lungu he did not do such a good job. And to accept that is a good place to start. If Mr. Lungu starts to justify that it was all fine, he was doing an excellent job, he's only angering the Zambian people. They are getting more angry. Is that what he thinks about us? Why then did he think we voted him out of office? We were not being malicious. We just thought that we could have a better life. So for me, I think I don't join that kind of cheap politics. I've been in this game for 27 years, and I know what is substance and what's not substance. When I criticize HH over something, I can assure you it's never on these frivolous things because my heart is for this country. I have sworn my allegiance to the success and the dignity of my nation. And I lose friends over this country and I gain friends over this country. But I will not join a group that just wants to politic and it doesn't even make sense. If the price was lower in PF and it was lower in MMD, then going by Mr. Lungu's suggestion, then the Zambian people should be calling for UNIP to come back.
But maybe let me bring it, home to you, Dr. Mumba. You've been traversing across the country. What are people telling you around the cost of living? Are people happy with the current conditions that they're living under?
Well, the people that we are talking to, of course, are varied people. I cannot claim that there's only one group of people talking to me. There are a lot of people that believe that if UPND did not take the current measures they're taking, Zambia would have been further destroyed. And all they are saying is that the president needs to be clear to the Zambian people that we need to, fasten a little more our belts and tighten them in order to go through this season, because it's unavoidable. I mean, one thing that I appreciate that this president is doing under all this pressure is not to become a populist president who comes up and says, you know what, because everybody's saying that fuel is too expensive, millimil is too expensive, I insist that fuel now will cost, 10 kwacha per liter or 5 kwacha. I insist that this is going to happen this way. I insist that the prices are going to come down from next week, Tuesday, so that everybody can afford it. He's not succumbing to that because he understands that that's not how economics work. If he does that, he will collapse the country. So there is a process that we have to go through to recover from the mess that we found ourselves in. And intelligent people understand that this is not an abracata situation, where a president comes in and says, yes, now abracata, everything goes back to a place where it is cheaper and everything becomes the way it should be. No one has that power, not even a king, not even an emperor. What happens is that you find a messed up vehicle. The more messed up it is, the more time the mechanic takes in repairing it. If the problem is simple, within a week or within a day, they can tell you, come and pick up your vehicle, it's already repaired. So there is that group of people that are able to understand the dynamics that we are coming from a place where we're the only country that defaulted in our foreign debt, in repayment. The only country during that time that defaulted, the only country that accumulated so much debt that if it is not restructured, we are going to go into double jeopardy and problems. There's a group of intelligent, hard-thinking, fair-thinking Zambians who understand we were in trouble and to get out, we have to pass through this fire. Those are fine, I've talked to them. But there are also those that are just being hit by the circumstances of this economy. And those are my relatives. Those are my friends. Those are my colleagues with little businesses that are trying to make ends meet. It will be wrong for them to say things are well. I think that their perception of this current economy is that it is very tough, very difficult. And you even hear them, we will not vote for HH or UPND because of ABCD. But again, you understand that there's pain when you can't get what you want. But that is why, Kenneth Kaunda and Frederick Chiluba kept saying, it's gonna be rough, it's gonna be tough, stay with me, stay with me. And President HH needs to be saying that at least once per week. It's gonna be tough, but stay with us. This is what we are doing this week. This is what we're gonna do next month. Stay with us. Stay, because even if they change today, somebody else, Mr. Lungu takes over office today, for instance, those Zambians are going to get a shock of their lives. That minimum may even triple, because it's not Mr. Lungu necessarily who is going to bring the minimum down, because if he does, he will destroy the economy without going through the process. So I think we have a situation where we have enough educated people, we have enough economists in this country, we have enough elderly people in this country that have seen it all, and some of us belong to that group. And we know that this is not an easy issue with easy options. So yes, there are people that are angry, and they are rightly angry and rightly so, because it's painful. And I think that's the message to the government, that there must be some small things they do to sort of make the lives of the ordinary Zambian a little easier, around their big program of solving the bigger economic challenges we face as a country.
Dr. Mumba, the UPND took over office at the time of the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was actually just concluding, but very few years into their office, they were hit by a very severe drought, the El Nino drought, but also it is amidst their leadership that there's war in the Middle East that has made the fuel prices to go high. Do you think that the UPND have a good case to argue? But also, to you and I that perhaps could understand these dynamics, do you think they're doing enough to convince the Zambians that these are the reasons why potentially we are not where we're supposed to be in terms of our governance system?
I think this is really the contention that we have now. We have a working relationship with our friends in the UPND, and this is our appeal to our colleagues. Look, HH became president towards the end of COVID, like you've put it. Just as we are coming out of COVID, you understand that these wars began affecting the global economy, which eventually affected us. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about now, in the Middle East, all the attention of donors has gone to the Middle East. It is still in Ukraine. And those partners that work with us are now stressed and stretched in the manner they do. We know that not only was there COVID, we know that there was cholera that came. We know that, we also now are dealing with one of the harshest droughts. All that compounded together is such a difficult situation that even if you had the most brilliant leader to govern the country, he still has to deal with those real stubborn issues. And so the responsibility of this government is to daily, if weekly, announce to the Zambian people, fellow countrymen, these are the challenges we are facing together, not just us as UPND, together. There are no simple answers unless we all do this together. That's the language that UPND should start using. Let's do this together, because the complexities are too many, and they're not created by HH. They're not created by UPND. These are natural phenomena outside the powers of the government in place. The reason why I don't want to become ridiculous in accusation is that tomorrow I could be president. And I would like people to understand me when I try to work with them in resolving natural tragedies. So I think today, the reason we are standing with our colleagues in the UPND is to strengthen them during this very difficult time. Because if they succeed, Zambia is going to succeed. And I think that this is where we are. I agree with you. The UPND has a good case if they have enough PR to be able to explain to the Zambian people. But I can tell you this has been one of the most challenging seasons, not only for Zambia, but for other countries as well. I'm traveling on the continent. I mean, we are much better off. I mean, I don't want to mention names of countries, but I've got countries where my friends are presidents. And it's a sweaty business. It's a difficult business. At least we have fuel. Some others don't even have fuel. It's a scramble for Africa for them. So I think that for me and those who are enlightened, they know what we're going through. But of course, cheap politicians are going to use this as though they are claiming that if they became presidents, they will solve it. They don't even talk about how they are going to handle that. So myself, I think that we have a problem, and UPND needs to constantly explain it to the Zambian people.
Opposition political parties are critical to any thriving democracy. I would like to find out from you, Dr. Mumba, whether you think that we've got critical opposition political parties today that are offering critical checks and balances to the government of the UPND.
Well, listen, for me, I believe in a vibrant democracy. That's what MMD is all about. MMD brought into this country multipartism for the purpose of bringing different ideas to the table in finding ways in which to better serve the Zambian people. So for me, I believe in a strong opposition. I believe in a strong political party in government, and I believe in strong interaction between the two. Now, I think that we have a situation that I am having problems with, especially with some of my colleagues in the opposition. And I've made it very clear, and I've not been liked, because of this. I think I want us to engage this government on critical issues that could have negative lasting impact on the lives of the people and raise issues about those issues. I'll give you an example of my disappointment. To sit with a notepad waiting for President HH to make a speech and make a mistake so that you can talk about that statement or the wrong English you used or the mistake so that you can criticize him. I think that is cheap. To be an opposition because you are angry that you were taken by the police to the courts yesterday. So you become unreasonable because you are now, it's about you. You are injured. So you are going to just use words you want without any control and call your friend Ichunsu, you are the lacuna yourself. Those kind of things do not come or constitute good opposition. It's useless opposition that does not help the Zambian people. It's all about these politicians. Now, in Parliament, President HH made a statement, talked about a lacuna in the Constitution, that if this lacuna is not taken care of, it could tempt someone in government to use it to prolong their stay in government. Then I saw some of my friends holding press conferences on saying President HH wants to continue in office. That's why he's pointing at that lacuna. We are going to stop you. You are not going to do it. That to me is empty rhetoric, and it's not opposition. There's nowhere in that statement where that President HH said he wants to use that lacuna. If he wanted to use the lacuna to stay in power, do you think it would be so senseless as to reveal it to the nation that here is a lacuna which I'm going to use. So I want to stay long, so I'll use this lacuna if you don't. He said that so that it can be fixed, that not him, not another president who comes can use that lacuna to stay long. What is wrong with exposing what is wrong so that you fix it and nobody takes it? And yet our colleague says he wants to stay. It's that kind of opposition that I don't want to be a part of. I am not young anymore. I want to deal with real issues that serve the Zambian people and not politics that only try to deal with my situation. So let me be clear. It's also like the issue that I shared with you when I said that President Kaunda, Chiluba, and Rupia Banda took a path as former presidents that ended them where they ended up. And if Mr. Lungu takes the same route, he's going to end up like them. You just watch. In a few weeks or months or years, he's also going to end up the same place. Then they say Nevers is prophesying doom to the former president. I'm not prophesying doom. I am saying history says this, and history is a lesson for us. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to end up that way. So I want responsible politics. And I have vowed to do responsible politics for Zambia, not for Nevers Mumba. That's why I don't care about the insults that they call me. It doesn't affect me. Let me help my colleagues. You can call me what you want. God is my defender. If you insult me and you call me names, just know it's between you and God. I am focused on this country. And when it comes to the well-being of my nation, I've lived for this for the last 40-something years. I will not change now to join empty politics.
Well, just very few weeks ago, Finance Minister Dr. Stumbe Msokotwane did present the 2024 national budget. Obviously, this budget comes, against the backdrop of severe droughts and severe power cuts that the people are experiencing. Actually, in other areas, power is cutting, for more than 4 days. I would like to find out from you, Dr. Mumba, whether you think this 217 billion budget that Dr. Stumbe Msokotwane presented to the people of Zambia, does speak confidence, does inspire confidence in the lives of our people?
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. I think let us be clear that the 2025 budget is a very delicate dance with a government that has pronounced its commitment to building resilience for what they're calling inclusive growth and improved livelihoods. They would like to develop the economy of this country and to bring healing. But in order to develop the economy of this country, investments have to be made in economic areas of the budget. That's where the money should be able to be invested so that it continues to reproduce itself and make Zambia a richer country. But against that background, this government is dealing with one of the worst droughts we've ever had, which has had a ripple effect on issues of energy, and energy having an effect on issues of food security, and food security having an effect on the security of the nation. So it's a very difficult thing, which means the budget for this year has to be a little higher in the social sector and also in community work. And so the social sector is taking a huge chunk out of the economic sector in order to mitigate for the drought and for the suffering Zambians. So this will be a very delicate dance of a budget. And you must understand the budget is basically estimates of expenditure for any government. In English, we'll say they are putting their money where their mouths are. So if this government says we want to develop the economy, they must put money in economic drivers of this economy, which is agriculture, which is mining, which is tourism, areas that are going to bring out money. But they can only do so much there because they need some of that money to mitigate, the suffering of the people that are being adversely affected by the drought. And many other things that, we're coming out of cholera, we're coming out of COVID-19, we're coming out of all those things. So this is a very challenging budget. But however, I am quite encouraged that even in the midst of this challenge, CDF has been increased. If only we can manage this fund in an effective way, non-partisan way, the Zambian people will be developed. This is where the answer is. Let's find a way to manage these resources without any corruption at this level. And it must be inclusive. It cannot be just for those who are in the ruling party participating in the CDF. It has to be every Zambian from every political party having access to this money and be part of drivers of economic development of our country. That's number one. So we are happy that that CDF has been increased to such high levels. But also you must understand that the social sector is also calling. By giving free education, which is something that is a plus, we now create another problem there, because if a school under school fees was receiving $1 million kwacha per month as recurrent expenditure, now because of limited money, they will receive maybe 100,000 kwacha. So there will be a lot of gaps in how to meet the obligations of schools, secondary schools, universities, and primary schools, because the money that they were getting from other income from school fees are not there. So there are those challenges that we are going to go along with. My advice is to do the same thing in the economy as they are doing in the politics. In the politics, UPND must be in line with the Zambian people, telling them where they are. This is where we are. These are the problems we are facing. And it's not only us, UPND, all of us are walking this path together. That's how they are going to survive politically. Economically, they have to keep talking as well. That listen, because of the drought, because of this, we only have 60 kwacha left to share with all these. And so because it's 60 kwacha, we cannot share too much. We're only going to get 6 kwacha each. So it is important to communicate. This budget, as good as it looks, it's not a panacea for the things we're looking for. In fact, I would say, let's lower our expectations in terms of at the end of this budget. Why? Because there are so many moving parts that we are not sure of right now how we are going to manage them. So let's not be so expectant that this budget will solve all our problems, but let us know that the money has been placed in the right votes, and that is encouraging in itself.
In conclusion, Dr. Mumba, President Hakainde Hichilema has been stating that there's a number of things that government is doing in the background to ensure that the material conditions of our people are improved. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, I do. I think that the reason, in fact, I've remained solidly standing with President HH on many issues is not anything that people are talking about. It's the interventions that he's making are very similar to the interventions MMD made, especially when Levi Mwanawasa was president and I was also vice president during that time. It is a time that we're forgiven of our biggest debt because of our fiscal discipline that we demonstrated. I think that one thing that this government has done, there were many, many problems that were attendant to us when they took over. I mean, the KCM and Mopani issues were in a mess, unresolved issues. Those needed to be resolved. They have since been resolved. We are seeing Barrick Gold opening a 2 billion extension over there. And I'm happy to talk about Barrick Gold because I'm one of those who was part of bringing them to Zambia when I was High Commissioner in Canada. And I know how they came here. But you can see now that they're expanding, creating more jobs. We are seeing now that the mine in Chilawombe, the new one that is coming up, we are seeing a lot of mining activities that are being revived now. And it may not even be appreciated within the term of this current president. But as we look to the future, these efforts that are being made by this government are going to show forth in the years that lie ahead. These are huge investments. These are huge interventions in the economy. Now the drought has presented to us other opportunities that now we are going into the irrigation aspect in a more serious manner, using center pivots and creating an agricultural cycle that is not necessarily dependent on rain-fed kind of agriculture. And we are hoping that by the time this thing is over, Zambia will be a totally different country. It will be resilient. Whether there's rain or there's no rain, there will be food. Whether there's rain or there'll be no rain, there will be agriculture, and there will be energy, electric energy, whether there's rain or no rain. And this is what this difficulty is going to create for the Zambian people. And that's what the president and his team need to be telling the Zambians consistently, that listen, yes, we're in trouble. Yes, there is a drought. Yes, we have no energy, but we are going to use these things, the negatives, to make sure we create a more resilient economy and country, that next time these things come back to us, we would have already resolved them. So for me, I'm very positive that I don't agree with everything that UPND is doing, but I agree with the direction UPND has taken. And I think having been in this same spot as MMD, they are going to receive criticism. Zambians wanted to go back to Kenneth Kaunda when we started as MMD to change the economic model of this country because they were not used to this. There was pain, there was suffering. Like today, they said we want Kaunda back until, it was only after 15 years that MMD demonstrated that we were truly on the right path. Our debt was forgiven, and now we started to grow the economy to the levels that we left it. So for me, I'm very confident that if we stay on this path, Zambia shall be a better country, and we shall be praised by other nations if we can be resilient enough to see it to the end.
Dr. Mumba, thank you so much for making time to join us on this day tonight.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And to the Zambians, thank you so much for having joined us.